All right, everyone. So we got a big divisional game. Okay, you got the Texans, you got the Jags, and this is a game that could determine. Obviously we have the Colts kind of running away with this thing, but if the Texans lose this, all right, they're in trouble. If the Jags lose this, it's going to kind of even out all of that. But at the end of the day, the Texans, this is really a must-win for them with the Colts running away. So let's get right into it. As we always do, we'll give you an argument for both sides and why they can cover. So for starters, look, the Jags just haven't looked good this year, and I know the Texans haven't also. That will be in the Jags section, but I can't look at the Jaguars and the play of Trevor Lawrence and everything we've seen and say, oh, that team, they're going to be they're going to be good this year, right? They certainly have talent and they can figure some things out, but there's a lot of drama over in Jacksonville, and I just don't like the vibes we're getting from them. The next one, the Texans need this win. Look, the Jags may need this win. I'm not saying that, the Jaguars, they're not running away with anything right now, but the Texans are 0-2, right? This is a must win game. If you don't win this game, you could basically kiss your playoff hopes goodbye because this was a division that everybody kind of understood every year, right? This is probably a team with a division that's not going to have a wild card. And whoever wins this thing is going to be, in charge when you have the Colts at 2-0. When you have the Jags at that point will be 2-1. I just don't see it going 0-3. How you climb out of that, right? In any way, shape, or form. So I think this is a must win as of week 3. Flip over to the Jaguars side. Actually, one more thing on the Texans. They got an elite defense too, and I think that's really important. When I look at the Jaguars, I just don't see either side of the ball as being consistently elite. This Texans defense, even in that game against the Bucks, I mean, this defense looks like the real deal, and I think they can make life miserable for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, on the Jacksonville side, the Texans offense looks bad. Look, CJ Stroud, everybody there, they just don't look good. There's talent, but they just don't look good. And I think you saw in the game against the Bucks the attention to detail in the red zone, the small things, right, that you need to win football games, they weren't doing. They had their chances to win week 1. They had their chances to win in week 2 and were unable to do it. And so if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, if I'm able to take care of those things, even though this team has a great defense, that offense gives me hope that I can find a way, if the Jaguars play their best game and if the Texans offense looks like it has, you can kind of make this thing a tough deal, especially since you're at home. Um, would be a major win for the Jaguars. Look, so far it's been kind of a drama filled first few weeks for the Jags, right? There's no question about it. My thing is you're still 1-1, only a game back from the Colts. You look at week 1, you did a good job against the Panthers. You beat them pretty good. And against the Bengals, a lot of people think you probably should have won that game. So you're not in a terrible spot. There's no question about it. And this win would solidify you for. Listen, we're going to be a threat somewhere in the AFC here in terms of making the playoffs, right? If the Colts take a step back, we could step in. And at 2-1, seeing how a lot of these teams are trending in the AFC, teams like the Bengals and the Chiefs, you never know. So I think there's this is a huge spot for them, and I think they understand that. There's been a ton of drama, but that drama has not led to them being way out. The Texans haven't had a ton of drama in terms of locker room issues, but they're in a danger spot. The Jags are not quite in that spot, and I think that might be a big deal. So now for my pick. I went back and forth on this game because I do think that this Jags are at home pick'em game. I do think that the Jags have a lot of good stuff going for them if they can kind of put it all together. But the thing that kept kind of coming back into my mind whenever I would get on the train of the Jags is that Texans defense is elite. And I think when you have one side of the ball that is so good, right? And we saw it against the Bucks, their ability to hold the Bucks to 20 points. When you look at how that Texans defense played, dominated the game, give them a chance to win, you think about what they could do to this Jags team, that makes me really nervous betting on the Jags. So I'm going with the Texans. And I'm not going with the money line. I'm going with plus the points. And the reason I'm doing that is for a pretty crazy reason of I could see this game potentially being a tie. I just could, right? I could just see this game somehow ending up in a tie. So I want to make sure that I have that point 0.5 in case that did happen. But yeah, I'm not going to be wrong with the money line. I'm going to do the plus point 0.5 on the Texans. I just think the Texans, where is it that when I look at the Jags offense, do I think they have a better quarterback than the Texans? No. Do I think they have better receivers? You go back and forth, but like Nico Collins is the real deal. Dalton Schultz as a tight end, he's had some big moments. They have talent on that team. Even the running game, which we haven't seen get going yet, they have Nick Chubb. And I thought he looked decent running the football for the Texans. So if they can kind of find their way in this game, and that defense just makes life miserable for Trevor Lawrence, gets him to turn the ball over, I don't know. It just seems to me all the momentum in terms of, look, if the Texans lose this, their season is basically done. I think they're going to come in and look as good as they've looked all season. And the Jags, it's not that this would be, some kind of good loss for them, because there is no good loss. But if they lost this game, you can still find a way to kind of craft your way back into potentially battling it out for this division. Whereas the Texans, there's really, there's no way from 0-3 I see them pulling it out. So thank you all for watching. As we always say, never gamble what you can't afford to lose. There's no profit guaranteed. This is just my thoughts on the game, and we will see you next time.